today we're going to talk about the 5 ways to grow your business without growing apart from your spouse. How's that one, honey?
Yeah, it's great. Who doesn't need more of that?
Which one? Growing apart from your spouse?
No, growing your business and growing and connecting with your spouse.
Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hello. Welcome, Thriving in Tandem family, to this week's episode.
Hi, Tandem fam.
And today we're going to talk about the 5 ways to grow your business without growing apart from your spouse. How's that one, honey?
Yeah, it's great. Who doesn't need more of that?
Which one? Growing apart from your spouse?
No, growing your business and growing and connecting with your spouse.
And today, this is our last week in our temporary studio in our lakefront home the one, we don't own it, but the lakefront home in Lake Norman that we've been renting for the last month to kind of check out. And it's our last week here. And so it's going to be our last episode recording this in this studio. And so kind of sad, huh, honey?
Yeah, it's been beautiful here. Oh my gosh, we've been loving it.
Yeah, and I'm just looking out to my right here, or my left, I guess, at the lake. It's just a beautiful time. Been a really great time to just kind of just relax, recharge, refresh. I mean, we've still been working, but we've also been contemplating, moves and business and all kinds of potential transitions. So it's been a good place to do all that and to really get the juices flowing, the creative juices flowing, right, Annie?
Yeah. And we've been able to get some rest, which that is a sense of being. It's not doing. And it's not like just sitting on the couch doing nothing. It's just being able to be in a restful place. Yeah.
I mean, the creativity is just flowing, when you're at rest and peace. I mean, when you're relaxed, you just are just better. I mean, even just like in sports, they always talk about, just when you're more relaxed, you're better, especially like golf. And so, when you're tense and you're thinking too much, you overthink, you don't perform as well. Mm-hmm. But when you just relax and just play, things just go better, right?
Yeah. And so that kind of plays into the whole thing. So that means you have to give yourself margin of being able to rest and being creative and be able to get into those fun places.
Yeah. So I guess that might lead to tip number 1 here on the 5 ways to grow your business and not grow apart from your spouse. But I think the first one would be boundaries. Boundaries between business and home. Yes, you got to work, like even as we've been here, we've been working, mm-hmm. but there's a lot of things we've been wanting to do outside that. We wanted to explore the area as a potential place to live. And there's Lake Norman's, I think they said there's about 500 shoreline miles. There's 500 miles of shoreline along Lake Norman.
Yeah, it's
so
huge.
It's a big lake. And there's 5 cities that basically surround the lake. And so want to know, get an idea of, these areas takes a little bit of time. So of course we did on the weekends, but then even we met with people and build relationships here too. So during the week too, we were, meeting for lunch or coffee or dinner or whatever. And so we wanted to make sure we had time for all those things. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we had to create some boundaries.
Yeah, because we didn't want to be stressed, like running from one thing to the next, and our day's so packed that we're like, oh my gosh, we're exhausted.
Yeah, and so boundaries between business and home, what that looks like is, well, number 1 is when you're off the clock, you should be off the clock. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be thinking about work, answering texts and emails when you should be connecting with your spouse, your kids, or even like what we're doing is enjoying and exploring the area. So when we're out and about, I'm not checking emails and texts all the time. I mean, sometimes the text comes through and I'll look at it, but I don't have to respond or whatever. Even emails, right? As I'm out during the day, we want to make sure we take in all that Lake Norman and the Charlotte area has to offer and not get consumed with business when we really should be experiencing the area.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, yeah, when we're out sitting in front of the lake, I don't want to be on my phone the whole time, like texting and checking emails. I want to enjoy the view and be able to take it all in. And I think you also need to be intentional about when that time is when you're home. Like, okay, I'm home now. Is it 5 o'clock for you? I mean, it can look different to so many people, what that looks like. so that you can make the transition, and everybody else in your family knows as well that, okay, now I'm at home and I'm in family time.
Yeah. And then you're, excuse me, when you're off the clock, yeah, you just put the phone in and keep it in the other room or in a closet or in a drawer somewhere away, because otherwise when the notifications go off, or turn off those notifications. I mean, I pretty much have all the notifications off on my phone. So, I mean, I'll get you'll get the little number that pops up on the screen on the app. But as far as, I don't get the signal, right? I don't get the bing,
All the
that kind of stuff.
Facebook, the
Yeah.
LinkedIn, the emails, every ping you get.
Because then that just, we're like Pavlov's dog. We respond to those things. And so, it's amazing. I'll go through almost a whole day, or at least go through the morning, and then I'll check the phone around lunchtime when I'm checking my emails, and I'm like, oh, I got some messages, right? I got some texts, and so then I'll respond then. And then after that, I just put it away. So it allows me to get a lot of stuff done in business, in the business time, when it's business time. But then, of course, when it's family time, right, I definitely don't look at it.
Well, and too, with business time, you are really good. You'll check your emails 3 times a day.
Yeah.
So that you can focus on your business and you'll not get so sidetracked. I mean, even with text, I can be checking my phone 100 million times a day and there's no text that came in. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. You can do the same thing with email.
Yeah. So creating make sure those boundaries just mean, when it's, you define, make sure you and your spouse define, okay, when it's off time, how do we make sure you're focused and you're present for your spouse and your family? Because I don't care how busy we all are, at some point you're not working, right? Because you got to sleep. So, and then, or even that transition between, work and then going to bed, or, have dinner. But anyways, you got to have that time when you're supposed to be home, or supposed to be present, and establish that and stay hard and true to that. Now, of course, there's, like say typically 6 o'clock, once I close the computer, it's family time. Sometimes, I'll say, hey, honey, I need a half an hour more, or I need an hour more, or something like that. I'll just,
or you have a call or something coming in.
Yeah. So
you need to take.
Yeah. So this isn't so much, cast in stone, right? We're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking for progress.
And sometimes we even work on a Saturday, but we communicate that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Or you do.
And so this bleeds into number 2. It's another boundaries in the time you work. And so, is it 5 o'clock? Is it 6 o'clock? Is it 7 o'clock? And then do we start at 8 or 9 or 7:30 or 5, whatever. But create boundaries in the time that you work. Now, again, we're looking for progress, not perfection. These aren't cast in stone. But reason why our life gets so out of whack and we're always continuously working is because we have no boundaries. And so we just keep working, right? And there's no data that shows the more hours you put in, the more progress and more productivity you have. I mean, there is to a certain point. So there's, if you've been listening to us for a minute here, there's all kinds of research data from Henry Ford in the manufacturing in the early 1900s to the present day Stanford University, Virginia Tech, on productivity and performance that shows peak performance has a peak, as it suggests, right? Peak performance, to get peak performance, there is a pinnacle, there is a top, and then after that, it goes down. And in terms of hours, this is a little bit of a generalization over multiple studies, but essentially anywhere after 40 to 50 hours of work a week in a week time, the productivity level just starts to drop off the cliff. And you really don't gain more by putting in more hours after that, especially after 50 hours a week.
And just because you're busy in your work or even at home does not mean you're productive.
Yeah. So create boundaries in the time to work. So I remember, years ago when I was transitioning from corporate to consulting full time, I was doing double duty, right? Working a corporate job and then at evenings doing a consulting job. And then, I was working till 2 a.m. a lot of nights. And then by the weekend hits, I'm just exhausted. And so my first boundary in the time I work was, okay, in the consulting area, I want to get to bed by 11 p.m. as opposed to 2 a.m. So that's 3 hours a day or 15 hours in a week of extra sleep, basically, right? That's 2 days. That's 2 nights of extra sleep.
That's a lot.
Right? That's how much I was losing.
More sleep, yeah.
That's how much time I was losing by going to bed too. So what happened was when I created that boundary, it forced me to evaluate where I spent my time,
Mm-hmm.
which goes into boundary or key number 3, boundaries of where you spend your time in work. So these all kind of play into each other, right? Boundaries between business and home. And then when you're working, create some boundaries on the amount of time you spend. And then number 3, create boundaries on where you spend your time at work. So basically, when I create that boundary of time, it forced me to evaluate where I spend my time, what was productive versus what was just busy work,
Mm-hmm.
right? The reason why we are so busy all the time is because we're just doing busy work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because if you don't put that boundary of time, you'll just keep working, right? You'll find something to do.
Well, and I think you need to keep track of your time too. Write down what you're doing so you can see if you are being productive.
Mm-hmm. So it forced me to evaluate, okay, what's productive for me? And so one was, of course, producing some content, but obviously doing work with clients, evaluating their business and that kind of stuff, having calls, all that kind of stuff, but even outreach of potential clients and all that. And then
Yeah, you have that on your calendar.
yeah, and now I do, yeah. And then so yeah, in fact, yeah, there's the time blocking. I guess this goes into time blocking, where I spend my time, what days, and then what happens is
Monday's your content day. Sorry, honey. And then isn't Wednesday the day you reach out to relationships, build relationships? Mm-hmm. And then Friday is
finance day, which is valuing the finances. That doesn't take a full day, but it's just first thing in the morning, usually on a Friday. But anyways, all that to say is, things that are productive in work, I just gotta, what I do now is a time block or day block, right? Or at least in that day, Wednesday, the first thing in the morning, I spend at least 2 hours, right, with outreach. And then on Friday mornings, it's, I spend that first hour or so on just evaluating the finances, but I make sure I do those things first thing. Otherwise, once you get into the day, you'll, especially when you start checking emails or something, you just get sucked into just busy work, mm-hmm. right? Just responding to things.
And those important things you want to do first thing in the morning while you're fresh, right?
Yeah, especially when you're looking at numbers. so again, yeah, you just think about, where you're more fresh. What are some of the either things that are most physically exerting or mentally exerting? You want to do those things earlier in the day because that's when you're fresh.
Yeah, like when you're writing content, you just to sit down and get started on it and have no interruptions. You're not checking emails. You're not taking calls. You're just giving your full attention to it.
Yeah. So, for example, when it comes to where you spend your time, we said this before, but the data shows that 65% of the business owner's time is spent on in the business activities like, the busy work, administrative duties, answering emails, invoicing, dealing with customer service issues, dealing with employee issues. The list goes on and on, right? What just keeps you busy, and the things that are important, that are very productive, you kind of kick down the can. You kick the can down the road.
Because you say, "Oh, I don't have time to get to that. Or I got too many other fires I got to put out right now."
Right. So let's say, for example, instead of having to put out fires with employees, you have employee issues. If you were able to spend more, we call it proactive time in mentoring and developing your team, your leadership, and some of your employees, you would have less of those issues. Mm-hmm. Right? Because they could be self-governing in a sense.
Well, and I want to say too that if that is not your strength, get a coach, get someone to come in and help you in those areas.
Yeah. And so like I think a valuable part of my time is content development, but if you've got more of a product type business, then the research and development are kind of similar, right? And so, but those things tend to kick the can down the street. And so, because those things take time, number one, they don't provide an immediate return, mm-hmm. right? Because research and development, writing content, sometimes it takes days or weeks, or especially depending on certain types of products, it takes months, mm-hmm. right? To have a design for a product, find the manufacturer and all that kind of stuff. But if that's something that you're really good at, right? That will drive business growth, then you need to spend the time doing that. So instead of 65% of time on in the business activities that are just busy work, flip the ratio around where it's 65% of the time on the business activities, which is your zone of genius, research and development, mentor development, being the chief rainmaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Attorneys or accountants, and sometimes you can have multiple attorneys and accountants in your firm, but you as the business owner may be that face of the organization that just generates business. And so how much time do you like to spend on that? So, even in our intake form with potential clients, I mean, we ask this question, what percentage of your time do you spend on the business activities? And just like the research shows, just even anecdotally from our experience, yeah, a very low percentage of time is spent on the business activities. And so think about, once you're able to flip that ratio, what that would do to the growth and trajectory of your business. Of course, then the question is, well, what do I do with, these things have to be done, but, what do I do with it? So again, going back to mentor development, or mentor and employee development, is make sure you raise up a team that can, or hire and mentor and train a team that can take care of those things. Now,
because that'll free you up for your time to do the things you love to do and that you're great at.
And again, you got to carve out time for that, because it's so easy to just hire people and expect them to get everything done, but you really need time to develop these people.
Right. Do you mean they don't come trained already?
They can come trained in a skill, right? But to know the culture and the values of the organization, even how you want things done or how you want things presented, right? They might be a great tech person or a great administrator, but how the reports are given, what frequency, all those things. There's all the minutia that the employee, while they might come in with great skills, they need to understand how you want things done, right? So that takes time, and you don't want to just hire them and just train them for a little, a few hours, then let them go, right?
Or let them figure it out on their own, because then that's not productive either.
Yeah, you need to spend the time to develop them. So yeah, those are 3 boundaries, right? Boundaries between work and home, boundaries in the amount of time that you work, and then boundaries of where you spend your time. Number 4 would be increasing profit margins. So again, this is about how do you grow the business without growing apart from your spouse. Another reason why we're so busy in business is because we're just chasing sales. And the average net profit margin in a business in America is about 6 to 7%, which is, so 6% of revenue basically is net profit, which is after everything's paid, all your expenses are paid, including the owner's salary. So make a caveat, because a lot of times people will look at their net profit and go, oh, we got 20% or 25%, but they haven't taken out their salary, because they usually take out from the net, as opposed to just having a line item in payroll, right? And so I always have to make a caveat about that. So after you're paid as the business owner and all the other expenses are paid, you should have 15 to 20% net, but the average net profit margin in business in America is 6 to 7%. It's okay, but it's not great, because think about it. On net, what happens out of net? It goes to saving. You want to always save at least 6 months of operating expenses in reserve in case something happens, emergencies happen, and then also to invest into the business, like research and development, buy new software, hiring more people, and then of course, all the other things that go into reinvesting into the business.
Yeah, like innovation. I mean, I hear so many business owners say, oh, I have all these great ideas I want to do to move the business forward, but they just don't have the money to do it because they're not charging enough.
Yeah, and so increasing the profit margins is a big step to being able to grow the business without growing apart, because again, as we're having low margins, you don't have the ability or capacity to hire more people because you don't have enough net left over, right? Or invest into software or equipment that will make things more efficient, run things faster, get things done quicker. And so what it does is it puts the weight of everything back on the owner's shoulder as well as the team, which means you become overworked and underpaid, right? But as we're taking the steps to increase profit margins, that'll give you the ability to do those things we're talking about. So the first thing is increase price and figure out ways to reduce costs. So there's only 2 ways basically, or 3 ways to increase margins, is to increase price, reduce costs, or the combination of the 2. So again, we have plenty of content in previous episodes about increasing price and all that. So go back to, I'll probably put that in the show notes because I can't think of I probably should have done this ahead of time, talk to you about which, but anyways, if you're on our website, right, in the podcast page, go to the bottom, there's a little, I forgot what he calls the trees that gives you different topics at the bottom that we talk about. Profit margins is one of them. Just click on that and you'll see all the episodes on that. So anyways, all that to say is, it's good to, it's worth it to take the time to figure out what are areas where we can increase prices, because you got to keep up at least with inflation every year, which is averages 2 to 3%. Of course, a few years ago it was like 9%. So if you're not even keeping up with inflation, you're losing margin, right? So we just had a discovery call, reviewing. We have our marriage and business assessment on our website that you can do, and then we have a discovery call after that. I remember one of the clients, as we're talking about that, just pointing that out, that if you're not keeping up with inflation every year, you're losing margin. And they're like, oh, that's why we're not making as much as before, right? I mean, the revenue was as much or maybe a little bit more, but their bottom line was shrinking, right? And it was because they weren't keeping up with inflation.
Well, yeah, you might not be raising your prices, but all your vendors are raising their prices. So that's really cutting even more so into your margin.
Yeah, because people say, well, I can't increase my price because people won't pay. And I say, but you're paying.
I mean,
we're all paying higher prices, right?
We were just at the grocery store. I bought a dozen of eggs last week. It was $8. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And
they're hard to get too right now, eggs.
Yeah. And so, the excuse is, my customers won't pay the higher price, but our comeback is always, well, you're paying higher prices for things. We're paying higher prices for things.
I bought the eggs.
Yeah. And so definitely look for that. And then when it comes to reducing costs, it's not just about cutting costs. It's how do you increase performance? So the money that you're spending, you get greater outcomes, right? So we've talked a lot about this as well. So just, how do you get more done in the same period of time? So, you might be paying, you have an employee, or even if you hire, have a contractor, what are some ways you can streamline the work so they can get more done at the same amount of time, which means you spend less money for the work that's getting done. Does that make sense? So instead of, anyways, I won't belabor that point, but anyways, increasing profit margins, that's another way. Instead of looking for ways to increase sales and revenue, which is more volume, which means more work, think about how to increase your profit margins so that you make more money with the same amount of work, right? Or even less. The last one, honey, and you'll like this one, and I think it's very important, is listen to your spouse.
Listen to your wife? Oh, I love it, honey.
So how do you grow your business without growing apart from your spouse? Number one is listen to your spouse, because even if they're not working in the business, they probably see things that aren't healthy. Like, number one, you're working too much, right? And that can sound like a nag.
Or you look tired, and it doesn't mean we don't mean it in a bad way. It's just we're concerned for you. I've seen a lot of spouses that look like they're in bad health, and I know the other spouse is concerned about that.
Yeah, and so we can take it as the business owner. We can take it as criticism. You don't know what it takes to build this business, all that kind of stuff. And the reality is, no, they are concerned about you, and they're pointing it out because you don't realize it for yourself, or you don't want to look at that. And you got to figure out a better way to do business, basically, all that to say. And this goes to the previous points above, is you can grow the business without having to overwork, right? To have a healthy balance between working and growing the business, but also making sure you have time for yourself to rest, because you need the time to rest and recover and recuperate and re-energize, as well as being with your family. And
being present with their family.
Yeah. And they may not just be pointing out, what's going on and how tired you look and all that kind of stuff, but they also, if you bring them into the conversation, well, how do I fix this? They might not have all the answers, but they may have some answer, or at least a concept or something to think about to improve. So say, for example, I mean, sometimes they'll say, you need to hire somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that seems like a basic, right? And then the comeback is always, well, I don't have the money to hire somebody. Well, figure it out. Figure out a way to hire more people, or just you just got to work. You got to work less, right? So, how do you work? How do you find the money when you don't have it? And sometimes you got to look at that as more an investment. So these days, because it's so easy to get virtual assistants for just about everything, yeah, every kind of job that doesn't require them to be in person, you don't have to hire somebody even on a part-time basis to employ them and get them on W-2 and pay all the payroll tax and all that. But if you hired them for 5 to 10 hours a week, for example, or even as little as 5 hours a week, you can use virtual assistants for a very little amount of time. But if that could be the first step, that 5 hours a week or 20 hours in a month, which is basically like half a week's worth of work that you get to unload. That will allow you, number one, time back at home, but also giving you time to focus on the business activities.
Yeah. So that means you got to really focus and be productive on things of your zone of genius. Don't just backtrack. Not backfill. That's the word I'm looking at. With just busyness.
Yeah. So find the time. Look at that. Look at those expenses, not as an expense of money going out and I don't have the money, but look at it as an investment into your time. But also, it will result in money, because when you're able to spend more of your time in more productive work that will grow the business, will result in sales, right? That it will, you'll get a bigger return than just the money you're spending for an assistant or whatever position, even marketing, right? Because hire a lot of our marketing work too. So, even for marketing, instead of hiring someone, because I know.
Well, you have a team.
Yeah, but that's my point, is hire them out instead of trying to do it all ourselves. And a lot of times, businesses are looking to hire their marketing team as opposed to contracting. For whatever reason, people have an idea they need to hire these people. And I said, you know how expensive they are to hire really good people? They're really experienced in social media and video production and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to contracting on the work you just need to get done.
Yeah, by the project.
Yeah. And so, anyways, you can think about those things. Again, listen to your spouse. They see things that you don't. You have complementary gifts as husband and wife, and you're great at what you do, but you have a blind spot. We all have blind spots. And so your spouse is the person you can trust to see your blind spots.
Because we usually marry somebody opposite of us.
Yeah. And so we're just interviewing a couple yesterday, their husband and wife team. They have a chiropractic clinic, Justin and Courtney Mosley. And we talk about how the differences between husband and wives, and Justin's like me. He's more analytical. We have the data, we whiteboard stuff and all that. And his wife has a feeling. And we discount the feeling because you can't document it, right?
We can't prove it to you.
Yeah. But those feelings tend to work out to be true and to actually, be right over the whiteboarding that we've done or the analysis that we've done. So it's not to say one is better than the other, but you need both and take both into consideration and come up with your solution and come up with the answer. So your spouse is the best person, because who wants you to succeed more than your spouse? I hope your spouse does.
Yeah, right? It has your back.
And so they definitely want the best for you. They want the best for the business. They want the best for the family. And so they're not saying these things out of criticism, but out of really concern. And also they see things that you don't. And we got to take those things into account. So listen to your spouse. That's number 5, Penny.
Oh, I like that.
How's that?
It's great.
Okay. So, all right. Well, so hope this helps. 5 ways to grow your business without growing apart from your spouse. You take these to heart and implement it in some form or fashion. We don't need perfection. We just want progress. But if you do these things, you're going to get where you want to go. Have the freedom you desire in your business and have the life you want. And you'll thrive in tandem.
Yes.
All right. So please go ahead and share this with another married entrepreneur that needs to hear this. And my wife did not silence her phone. Speaking of notifications and turning off notifications, my wife did not.
I did not.
So there you go. So again, we're not looking for perfection, but progress. So next time, honey, that should give me the look. Anyways, all I'd say is, share this with another married entrepreneur who needs to hear this. And we'd love to get a review from you, 5-star review. And until next week, God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.